You got to tell me, what's it like to fly? I've never done that, and it
Yes.
must be just really thrilling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great time. It's like it's the very first thing we worked on. So I mean, it's yeah, it's great. You definitely, it's like a roller coaster. You definitely, there are times where like you'll feel it in your stomach, and it's just and it's the best time ever. Yeah.
So how is it now? Is it like, oh no, no, it's Thursday, I'll do that. Friday, it's here we are. Or is it still exciting?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where it's exciting for sure, but yeah, yeah, there's a lot of times where it's because it's work. I mean, it's like because you get used to being in the air, so it feels more like you're dancing or something, or like you're doing something like you sir. I'll forget that like I'm like a bunch of feet off the ground.
Did you ever have an accident yet? Yet, knock on wood.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's been a few things that haven't gone swell, but definitely not any
Yeah,
crazy
nothing like I'm
accident.
tearing down the set right now, and oh boy, what's
Exactly.
happening here? I'm worried about this, right? You had played in Peter Pan as a kid, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, when I was in fifth grade, it was one of the first shows I did, and I remember I like printed out flyers and I gave to my whole class, and I was like, "Guys, I'm Michael and Peter Pan. Come see me in Peter Pan." And 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 yeah, yeah. So it's always been a part of my life, and I've always loved the show, um, and yeah, yeah, it's always been something really special. I mean, like my first crush ever was like she played Wendy Darling, and I played her sister. So it's like it's always been like a like something really special, and always just like a magical experience every time I've done it. Even though it was just like I was with the kids, whatever, when I was younger. But
But did you ever think, well, I can never play Peter Pan because Peter Pan is always played by a woman, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I never thought because Peter Pan was like definitely my favorite. At least even though. Uh, it was definitely one of my favorite like fairy tale stories, and I thought he was so cool, and so I was always sort of bummed that yeah I sort of like figured I was like okay I'll never play Peter Pan because it's always a girl. I mean even in the production that I did when I was in like fifth grade it was a girl, and uh, which is kind of funny because it's kids so you can have a boy play Peter Pan and
Sure.
it's not a big but yeah, so I always figured, yeah, I never really figured there was a space for me in the show. When I was like 12, 13, I was like, oh, maybe I'll play John, and that never really happened when I was that age. And so I was like, okay, my time with Peter Pan has passed. Like that's
I'll
sort
be
of
Captain Hook.
yeah, I was like, give me 30 years and I'll come back to it. But
Does it make it seem like, well, they should have been using a guy all along when you see it now? Or do you see why they didn't have a guy in the role?
yeah, I mean, I understand the reasons, especially at the beginning, like with the fly systems. Guys are just bigger, so there was no way that they could have flown. They didn't have the right like counterweight systems and all that to be able to fly a guy, and so they had to get really, really tiny women. And I think that just sort of became a tradition over time, and people liked also the idea of just women being smaller and stuff, and that. But I think there's something. I remember when I was auditioning for it, I was really excited that I was like, okay, even if I don't get this, I'm really excited that they are gonna do a guy because I think that's something. I was really excited also that because it's always an older woman too is the thing. It's always at least like 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s. Like it's always older. And so for me, the really special part about it was that I was cast when I was 16. And so to get to be like really close in age to a lot of the people that we were trying to like um, market this show for and that this show is for. It it was really special to me to just have been in their shoes a few years ago and then getting to do that, especially for the young boys, young girls too, but young boys specifically, it was really special for me.
There were also some changes made to the script, right? So that it's not, and it's contemporary. Is that right?
Yeah, so the book was updated by Larissa Fasthorse, who she's lovely and she fixed a lot uh of like the areas regarding like the indigenous people and the native people and stuff where it was really there's some like not very nice or like it wasn't very
Right.
it just didn't work and it just doesn't work anymore.
Incorrect.
Yeah, incorrect. Yeah. And and so she updated that and she did a great job and she also said it in yeah modern America for the darling place. I mean Neverland is essentially the same because it's Neverland, so it's not a different time period or
Do you
anything.
think
But
that helps? Do you think it helps the story?
yeah, I think so. I think because we're not doing it in London or whatever, there's not British accents and there's not all that. Because I think it's more relatable to the kids in the audience. They can more so see themselves um, in this family, which is just um, yeah, like a lower middle class family, like just in America. And since we're touring America, that makes sense. So
Sure, sure, sure. We can relate to it a little more.
yeah, yeah.
At least I hope. Well, then, what have you learned about yourself during the performing of this over God, how many months now? Have you found that you're like it's more work than I ever thought it was going to be? Is it are you more self-reliant because of this? What does Peter Pan teach you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it teaches me, I mean, it's taught me so many things because this was sort of my first um big thing. Like I left I'm still doing classes, but I left public high school to do this. And so I mean, yeah, it was I don't think it was more yeah, I think it was definitely a bit more work than I expected it to be. I think there are certain it's just I mean, in every way the show like pushes like every like it pushes me to like to the bounds of what I can do in like every way, like singing, dancing. Um, it's a very active role because he's just a little ball of joy, and so he's constantly just moving, just going, just going. And so there's that side of it. The other side of it has also been I've learned so much about myself as like as a person and as somebody. It's been really interesting to grow up um, like right now for me, I just turned 18 a few weeks ago. So for me, this is like the quickest part of my life that I'm growing up. Like I'm growing up the most in this time. And so it's really funny then to go and do a show about growing up at night. And I mean it's really I get to reflect a lot and sort of, figure out what it is that like you lose when you get like when you're like 11 or 12 or 13 and sort of something starts to fade a little bit and to sort of find what that was and get to like tap into that every night when I'm like having to because my mom toured with me and now she's not because I'm 18 and so having to say goodbye and like welcome like adulthood I also get to
Work
keep
longer.
yes, yes. I also get to keep that child in me, and so that's really something
But
really special.
when you got to the point, and I don't know what part of the tour it was, when you said, "Well, wait a minute now, we don't go home after like 2 weeks of this thing. We keep going," and it's like it's not, you know how when you're doing shows in school, there may be
Hmm.
a couple of weeks at best,
Yeah.
that you perform, and then it's over. And
Hmm.
this just keeps going. Was that hard to understand or to grasp? Where you go, this is a job.
Yeah, it was definitely hard at first. I mean, I loved every second of it. I mean, it was sort of everything that I had ever wanted and dreamed of as a kid, and so I was having the best time ever. Um, But yeah, there's definitely moments of it was just like I remember this was 5 weeks into the tour at the beginning like after rehearsal and stuff and we did previews and then we had a little break and then we went back and we had 5 weeks on tour and I think we were in Cincinnati and I realized and I was like oh I'm kind of getting homesick or whatever and I was like I can't go home for like 4 more months that's our next break
Right.
like in 3 and so that was something really hard. And I mean, you definitely have days where it's still just uh, uh like you sort of just you want to go home and you want to see your loved ones and you just can't. But it's all part of the price and you do it and it's
Well, come
worth
on.
it.
You're doing something nobody else gets to do. So you know?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
a
Yeah.
fair trade. But what
Yeah.
about missing all that stuff at school? Does that enter in at all? Do you say, well, gee, I won't get prom, I won't get graduation, I won't get, does that matter?
No, for me, I really cannot care less about about the high school stuff. I hated high school and yeah, it wasn't for me as it is with a lot of kids, and I feel very grateful because most kids just have to stick it out, and I still have to do the work, but I didn't have to stick out the social end of it, and so I'm very I'm very glad to not be uh
Stuck with that.
stuck
Yeah.
there.
Well, then what happens? How long are you in the tour? Is it slated just open-ended or will it go to Broadway? What's happening with it?
Yeah, it's definitely open-ended. I mean, we've already gone for about a year now. I've been working on this for a year and a half, and so yeah, it's been a long time, and I think it'll be a long time in the future too. So
Well, then would you stick with theater or would you try something else? Or, where is it? Are you going to college? Where is the career then after Peter Pan?
yeah, I've learned from this about sort of what I like and what I do like. Obviously, I love musicals. It's where I grew up and it's what I've been doing for my whole life. But I do love acting and that's what I love. And so I think for me, and I've done a few film stuff, I think I want to definitely get into the more like film and maybe plays and stuff. And then in a few years come back and do another musical or whatever. But I think for me right now, it's just whatever, how I can streamline that like just getting to act is going to be what I want to do. So
Well, when you're 57, you can come back and say, I'm going to be Peter Pan again because they like old ones, right?
they
We'll have
do.
an
Yes,
old
they
Peter
do.
Pan in there. Who was the first Peter Pan you ever saw? Was it somebody on a tour? Was it somebody on television? Or do you remember your Peter Pan?
Yeah. Well, yes, and I know this had very mixed reviews of it. And looking back, I definitely feel different about it now than I did then. But I think it was the Peter Pan live, because I was really young. I was really young when that came out.
Sure,
And, and And I don't know. I think I love the Lost Boys in that, and I was like, oh, they're cool. Like I was like, oh, this is cool, and but I think probably the Disney stuff too was some of my first stuff with that. But yeah, like I said, I've always like I thought Peter Pan was like so cool, and I mean I've loved also what I've seen. I've watched all the versions with uh, Kathy Rigby, Mary Martin, and all those other people. And but I never got to actually see them live.
sure.
But but yeah, and I think they did a great job. But and I think it's really cool to get to do something different and sort of what I imagined Peter to be when I was younger. So that's cool.
Sure. When do you remember Sandy Duncan ever doing it? Did you ever hear that? Did you hear
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sandy Duncan was like the first Peter Pan after Mary Martin. And
Yes.
she was real freaked because she thought, oh, what am I going to do? I'm Peter Pan, but then there's Mary Martin. And one night they said, Mary's coming to the show. And like, what does she do? Well, Mary Martin comes back and she comes backstage to see Sandy Duncan. And she's like so worried that she's going to say, oh, this is just terrible. You suck. And she came to her and she said, Sandy, for millions of people, I'm Peter Pan. And, it's like gulp. And she says, but, for me, you're my Peter Pan. And it's like, oh,
Oh,
what
that's
a great
great.
story. It's like it can be passed on. It is something that can go from one generation to another generation and still be a story that we can all embrace at some point, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's great, and I think that continues. I mean, I got to meet Kathy Rigby came to our show, and that was really sweet and a special moment for me. And I was really freaked out because I mean, it's Kathy. She did it for tens of years, and
Did she
so
say, where's the gymnastics? You're not doing that. Come on.
I know. But yeah, no, so that was really great, and I think she really liked it, and we had a very nice conversation, and she was very proud, and she just met my mom a few couple like weeks ago. They ran into each other at a thing because she lives in Orange County where I'm from too, and so it's funny because we've been in the same community but we never met each other. And anyway, she met my mom and she's very proud of the work that I was doing. So it was sweet to it was sweet to get that approval because for like months and months I was like, oh, I hope she doesn't hate it. I don't know, but she didn't, and so I'm glad.
That's where Peter Pans are born. Come on.
Yeah.
That's the breeding ground. Um, when you look at this now, is it better not to have somebody like your mom around? Or is it,
Um,
I need somebody to help me do some of this stuff. I would think it'd be hard to stay on track with just life.
yeah. It's a different experience, for sure. I think the one thing I am finding is it's less that I'm losing somebody to help me do things, and more so we got so close in the past year that it's like I'm losing a best friend. And so that for me has been sort of the hardest adjustment. And because I mean, I was ready. It's funny that I am playing Peter Pan because I felt personally ready to be an adult since I was like 10 years old. Once I got to like the age of 10, I was like, I'm done
I'm
with being
growing
a
up.
kid. I want to be, yeah, like I want to do all the adult things. Like um, I want to go to the bank. I want what like really like things that adults find nuisance. I was like, I want to do that and be independent. And and so now getting to do that, it actually is great. I actually do really like it, but it's more so not being without my mom is being without a friend. So that's
Sure, sure. How are the kids at the show? Are they like, do they clamor backstage to see you or how do they react?
the kids come watch the show.
Yeah, who come to see the show?
Yeah.
How they, I have Newsies back here. When Newsies happened, they said it was like doing a whole other show after the show because the stage door was so intense. There were people like hanging there forever. And they said it's like another 2 hours that we're just spending with the show.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that
it's
the same
definitely.
with Peter Pan or not?
Yeah, in select cities, I mean, you go to like Little Rock, Arkansas, there's not really gonna people just go home, whatever. But like yeah, in LA and like in the major cities, it's a lot and it's a lot of kids, which is really sweet. Because I mean, that's who I do it for. So it's that's sweet. And there's surprisingly there's a lot of adults too who they come and they love it and they and and yeah, and there's a lot of I've gotten a lot of strange things from girls too, which is funny because I'm playing a little boy. I'm like, what is it? Like, what do you find about this? That's I don't know, but it's sweet. Yeah, people seem to connect with the story, and I've gotten a lot of nice things from little kids that have really made my. I'll get sometimes they'll like write like letters or cards, and they'll give it to me, and they'll be like, "This is for you and Tinkerbell," and so it's I have a lot in my dressing room. I have a lot of things from kids that are just hung up, and it's very sweet. They love
What do
it.
they want to know? What do they ask you? Is it about the fly? I'm sure flying is key.
But flying is every day. Yeah, every day. It's what's it like to fly? Yeah, I mean that's a fair question, but yeah, it's there's a lot of that. Uh, so sometimes quite a few kids ask, they'll be like, "Where's Tinkerbell?" And and I don't really understand. I'm like,
Behind
"Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah." But yeah, it's just a lot of, and there's a lot of times the kids don't want to leave either, which is sweet. Like they'll there's this weird they'll get shy when I come out. They'll get shy, and they'll like hide behind their parents' leg or whatever. And then eventually they'll come out and they'll start like I'll sign their thing and they'll start talking to me or whatever. And then I'll move on to the next person, sign the next person's thing, and then I'll see them having a conversation with their mom, and they're like, "No, mom, I don't want to go. I don't want to go home yet. Can we watch Peter Pan when we get home?" And
Oh,
it's really sweet because they just have a great time and they don't want
were
to leave.
you like that as a kid? Did you stage door and do things like that, or were you like, it's okay?
My sister did, so I would in turn follow, but I definitely felt like I was like I don't know, I just felt very weird about doing that. I was like, oh hey, like I don't know,
Well,
I was a shy kid.
why did you want to be in theater? What was it that drew you?
Um, I think initially, well, I just started doing it when I was really young, and I fell in love with doing it. And and then eventually like a few years ago it turned into I met my acting teacher and I sort of learned a lot and learned that it could be like a real experience and something not phoned in and something just actually like an experience up on stage and something honest and that really for me that's when I fell in love with like acting and that's really when things in my career started to like pick up and things started to happen because I loved it and so there was no stopping me at that time because I was just like and I think I hope that's still the case but it's yeah, it was just as soon as like something clicked in me and I fell in love with acting head over heels.
Does your sister act or is she?
She does, yeah. She's majoring in theater right now.
So what does she say that you're already in the business and
Yeah,
she's
she's
trying
very
out?
supportive. She's very great and supportive and she comes out. She's gonna come visit us in I think Omaha or something, but she'll come out and she'll do visits and it's great. She has a great time because she loves theater. So I think it's cool for her to get to see her little brother in theater.
What didn't you realize about the business then before you got in it?
Mm. It's a good question. I think the thing about the business, oh, I hate saying the business, but I think the thing about it is that, and I've talked about this with a lot of people, is that you have to be, in terms of like the business side of it, you have to be so like rock hard and secure in yourself. And like, especially with, I mean, people. On occasion, like people will come at you with reviews. They'll be like, "Oh, this guy sucks," and then the next moment it's, "Oh, this guy's great," or whatever. And it's so you have to be so rock hard and solid and confident in who you are, but then you also have to go and uh and be like soft as a pillow and open your heart to all these people. And so it's just that weird balance of like being able to like be that rock solid, but also not be at all. So it's
Sure.
really
Not jaded about the business, but
Mhm.
aware of what it could bring. You never know. Well, hey, Noah, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah,
great
thank
fun,
you.
and I hope you have a great time when you're up flying tonight. Just think about me because I would love to know what it's like. I would never do it, but I would love to know what it's like. So
Yeah, it's great. Awesome.
just,
Thank you.
just go. This one's for Bruce. This will be for him.
It
Okay.
will be. It'll be for
Okay.
Bruce. All
I'm
right.
counting on you.